A very
Good morning.
to all the esteemed members in the audience, and a huge thanks to Bradstreet for having organized this event for the benefit of all the members. The topic that we are discussing today is an extremely important one. It is about the evolving roles of private universities in developing a new age workforce. We all know that India has a unique advantage of a demographic window, and this is open for another few decades. We also know that education has a huge role to play in leveraging this demographic window. So let's see how we can put two and two together and examine how private universities can play a role in this progress. I'll start sharing my screen. So here we are. The first and most important set of words which strike me when I see this title is New Age Workforce. So we'll have to understand what we mean here. We also need to look at this key term called universities, and then we'll come to what private universities are. So let me begin here. Globalization and information technology have really made a difference to India. If you see the last 2 or 3 decades and the kind of prosperity that India has got, one of the fundamental drivers of this have been these two. So here I am looking at Henry Ford and what he said: a man's college degree and university degrees mean nothing until I see what he is able to do with them. Extremely true. He was a businessman. But it's not just Henry Ford. If you're taking somebody who's joining the Indian Administrative Services or someone who's joining a local NGO, in all these cases, the statement holds, doesn't it? There are great expectations all over the world from university education, from higher education. And that is the phase where a lot of people pivot, create their dreams, and then try to live their dreams. Of course, later, there is continuing education which helps members to reframe their dreams and to look forward and see what better they can do. At this stage, we will focus on the first aspect of it, which is the university education as most members in India go through. Now let's reflect here. Let's reflect here on where we stand. Many of you know this, that the benefit to society, which is largely run by business. Of course, we also have government and non-governmental organizations of tertiary education, of higher education, of university education. There has been a study. This is the World Economic Forum 2020 study. And what it does is it rates India at 38.5% amongst nations. So how did they put this measure? 0% is the worst. That means there's no relevance at all. Thank God we are not there, but nor are we anywhere in the top half. So if you look at China, we can see that they are almost slightly less than double of what we are. So there's a long way to go in terms of how we need to reset our education system. Where do we get directions from? Let's see what studies say. These studies are global studies. So they are relevant to India. Some of them, as you see on the right-hand side, are specific to India. So what do they say? I think first is that with technology coming in, with political and socio-economic forces, things have become far more complex. What has the pandemic done? It has only accelerated it. So what is needed? What do businesses need to do? Well, they need to figure out how they can become more relevant to customers, how they can add value to customers. And therefore, complex problem solving sits at the top of the hierarchy of the requirements that education needs to deliver on. And this needs advanced cognitive skills. Advanced cognitive skills does not mean rocket science. We'll try and examine this as we go forward. What is the other part? The other part is that all this drives change. If you want to solve a problem, it is not being done by the current methods. It means there is change. So you need innovation. And innovation means that socio-behavioral skills become important. So you're interacting with teams, you're interacting with a certain institutional momentum. So you need to know how you can get the change done. Socio-behavioral skills, this is extremely important. You also see that if there is change, change keeps changing. So it's far more complex than we think. We use the term VUCA. Well, it is more than VUCA now. So what happens when you have VUCA in front of you? VUCA incidentally is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So you need to have active learning. Active learning means that you learn while you learn. You're learning, but you still need to learn on that. So active learning, what you're currently doing, you need to be very dynamic about it. And therefore you need very specific strategies. So you put these together, you've got what the studies are saying. Is it surprising? I don't think so. So where do we stand as a country? Our growth got a bit stunted because of the COVID, and now we're trying to regain it. So McKinsey here has done a study for India, and what it feels is that in order to dominate the global economy, if many of you have been following, the Niti Aayog has projected that by 2047, 100 years of Indian independence, India wants to be one of the 2 top global economies in the world. Is it possible? Very much so. I think our competitors there right now would be the United States of America and China. So if you want to be there, then you need to set the stage. And the first setting of the stage is by 2030. You need to create 9 crore non-farm jobs, non-agriculture based jobs. This is about 1 crore a year. And where will this come from? Most of it has to come from higher education and universities, because universities churn out about graduates of about 1 crore a year, slightly less than that, but it's about 1 crore a year. So what McKinsey says is that there are 3 key themes for the country, for the company. For the country, employment is a very important issue. For the company, both productivity and economic value are important. And again, productivity and economic value are important for the country too. Why so? Because otherwise we would be doing the second-hand jobs. We would not be getting the prime jobs. We would not be paid billing per hour in technology, which is high. So it is necessary that we organize our future into definite themes. So that's what McKinsey has helped us to do. So what it says is there are 3 themes on which it runs: global hubs serving India and the world. This includes IT, ITES, it includes tourism, it includes traditional knowledge systems in agriculture, stuff like that. The second is efficiency engines for India's competitiveness. This includes financial services, which help operations become fast. It includes technology, services, which are done by the government. For instance, the digital platforms that we have, they are efficiency engines. They help people pay faster, let people who don't have too much money, give them payment mechanisms to pay. The third is new ways of living and working. New ways of living and working includes things like smart cities, things like digital communication, etc. So there's a full report on that called India's Turning Point, and you can read that. Now we come nearer to what universities need to do. And here I would refer to the work of Robert Reich. Robert Reich is a professor, he's a lawyer. He was a Secretary of Labor in multiple US governments, from Ronald Reagan on to Bill Clinton. He also served on the team of Barack Obama, and he was the professor of public policy, is the professor of public policy at the University of Southern California in Berkeley. Why have I chosen him? Because in very, very simple terms, he has analyzed for the US what kind of people are required. He calls them symbolic analysts. They are mind workers. They could be engineers, doctors, chartered accountants, executives, professors, consultants, anybody. What do? Basically, they are problem identifiers and solvers. So you're doing something, it's not working. What do? You need to bring in innovation. Now, These are the people who do that. They are called symbolic analysts. Remember that he did this work in the early 90s, but it is extremely relevant for India today. The work of nations preparing ourselves for the 21st century capitalism. So what do symbolic analysts do? They process information and symbols, and most importantly, they identify problems. Identification and framing the right problem is 50% of what we do in any innovation. So if you see venture capitalists, if they want to fund agency, they'll say, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? So if you are, as an entrepreneur, defining that very well, they'll be willing to fund you. So identification of problem, then solving them using technology is part of what symbolic analysts do. He goes on to explain the three categories of jobs in which symbolic analysts dominate. And if you look around you, they are the people who are paid the most. They are the ones who lead the change. They are the ones who reorganize and reframe organizations. So what Reach says is that it is the job of particularly higher education to provide opportunities to individuals to become symbolic analysts. Education gives you a frame. Education lets you think in a different paradigm. Education helps you to reflect what you're doing and look at how you can do it very differently. You get a lot of new thoughts, frameworks given by leading thinkers, practiced by people across the world, which you can use. Reflect on your experience, look at your ground situation, look at your problems and see what you need to do to change. This can be done majorly by education, and that is what Reach stresses on. So why is this so? Why should this be so important? Why are symbolic analysts so important? I think there's some things we are seeing right in front of us. There's a change from mass manufacturing to personalized and custom tailored products and services. We are seeing this across the board in the kind of services that we ourselves consume. The second is that there's no product without information. If you look at a doctor and the service they offer, they first ask about you. If they have a long history of yours, the solution they provide to you is far better. The better the information, the better the solution. This is true for lawyers. It's true for any trade. It's true for students also. If you know more about the student, you will be able to help the student learn better. Information is part of the service. Another is now it's high value and not necessarily high volume. Not that high volume is not there, but it also has higher value. Corporations are today willing to spread. So with gig economy, what does it mean? It means that you can be wherever you are and you can work whatever time you want. The contract is very personalized. And corporates are willing to invest anywhere in the world, provided they know how to manage the risk. Again, let's validate this. The best jobs are those of symbolic analysts, wherever it may be. You see it in real life, you see it in movies also. The people who can make a difference are the ones who are the most paid. And the nations which do this better, currently the United States of America is doing this well. China is doing this well. India can also do this well. But for that, education needs to change. So let's put this frame here. It's a popular frame given by Peter Drucker, the renowned management guru. So he lists 7 sources of innovation. I am putting this prism in front of us and reflecting on what we can do with respect to higher education, university education. The first source, he says, for innovation is the unexpected. Mind you, you can use this framework in any industry. We are using it for education. So we have seen crores of enrollment into MOOCs. We have seen tens of lakhs, millions of enrollment into SWAYAM. Why? Something is unexpected. At the same time, we have seen the success rate is low. Why? Again, there is something here for us to reflect. Studies repeatedly tell us that we are capping our employability at 40 to 50%. It's not moving further. The mass of education in India is very high. At the top, you have institutions which have got 70, 80, 90, 100%. But below that, you've got a huge bottom of the pyramid, which is pulling the employability down. This is something that we need to look at. The second, he says, is the incongruity. Let me give you a simple example of an incongruity. Typically in the academic world, if you've got better marks, if you've got better grades, you're the best. There's nothing further from the truth. From the IITs and the IIMs right down to the ordinary college, this is not exactly the truth. It does not mean that that is the person who will do the best for society, for the economy. The third source of innovation is the process. And in universities, it is glaring, the misalignment between curriculum, delivery, assessment, and outcomes. Today, the regulators, the UGC talks about learning outcomes. The AACSB in management assesses learning outcomes. But if you look at whether this process is aligned or not, I am not too sure, even in the best of institutions in the world. There's a lot of work to be done here. The fourth point they talk about is changes in industry and market structure. Perhaps the biggest disruptor in the horizon is the new National Education Policy 2020. If properly followed, it's got enough scope to trigger and disrupt education, but we need to see. Another is the level of autonomy that the government is beginning to give to certain types of institutions. It is called graded economy. So for instance, there are a number of colleges which have been recently allowed to offer online education, the top 100 autonomous institutions. So they've been allowed to offer online education. Autonomy gives its own freedom. It allows people to innovate. Then you've got the government coming in with a lot of policy changes. Academic bank of credits, credit transfers from online courses, and very, very recently, the almost finalized professor of practice. What next? The fifth is demographics. I don't need to repeat this. The demographic window of India implies that young India is waiting for education, and gross enrollment ratios currently hovering around 25, 26, 27% need to go up to 50%. That's the drive of the government. Innovation number 6, changes in perception, mood, meaning. Thanks to the pandemic, one dimension on which we need to be thankful, online education is accepted far more than it was before. The other is, in India, people are willing to pay if there are expected outcomes. I'm given to understand that the total number of admissions, enrollments done by private sector, including private universities, is of the order of 60%. The growth in the last decade, last 15 years, has come basically from the private sector. And lastly, and perhaps very relevant today, is new knowledge. Now, technology is there. You've got artificial intelligence, you've got machine learning, you've got data sciences, you've got analytics, you've got blockchain. Well, it's a very long list. And you also have the applications of this in each area. So you've got analytics for healthcare, you've got analytics for marketing, you've got analytics for supply chain. Every field, it is pervades every field. So this is also a disruptor. Now, how do you bring all these things into something like education? So here, there are about 5 points that I've tried to zero in on. The first is institutional autonomy. You allow people to flourish, and you will have Nobel Prize winners who will come in from villages. You will have globally renowned artists who come in from villages. So institutional autonomy is important. And a higher education institution which is situated in a remote area, doing solid work for society there, has crafted its own methods, its own vision, its own systems by which it will be able to connect between the kind of students and audience which is there nearby and convert that into meaningful value for the society around, and of course for the individuals there. This needs autonomy at the grassroots level. If you want every institution to be like an IIT or an IIM, and you want all professors to be like that, you are not going to tap the kind of potential which exists at the grassroots level. You can't name all these institutions as IIMs or IITs. So you have to let them flourish there, and you must know how to connect it back. The second important dimension is creative curriculum. Now, this is not just a word. What it means that with your existing courses itself, you can do quite a bit. So this is not just latest courses with technology with names there shown for us to see. It is how you connect to application. How do you make it relevant for the society nearby? How do you get people to do some action, the students to learn, to dream, to build bridges with those dreams, to implement those dreams. How do you do all that using your current curriculum? We run after new curriculum, but we do not know how to use our current curriculum. So creative curriculum is where you can leverage your curriculum and build bridges to dreams, vision, and benefit from that, not just the individual, but also society. Creative curriculum is extremely important. And here the faculty is the facilitator. The faculty is the person who's able to imagine all this, which is there written in a book, but can be translated into what is far more creative. And perhaps the most important of all these and the most difficult to achieve is autonomy to the learner. Throwing things at the learner and expecting them to do it is not autonomy. Ensuring that the learner is interested, get their attention, get them to invest their time, get them to sit in the driver's seat, and then fire the missile, fire the rocket, and then you will see wonders taking place. So learner autonomy is extremely important. Light the fire, the spark in the engine of the learner. This is learner autonomy. Along with it, go how you organize your delivery to become centric to the learner, and how you closely follow how the rocket has launched through learner analytics. You must follow, you must track, you must know what's going wrong. You will have to conduct many experiments, and finally you'll get there. Yet another important aspect is learning spaces. Today, learning spaces are concentrated, conventional institutions, they're concentrated into even private universities, they're concentrated inside the campus. Many of them are looking inside clubs in the campus, student life inside the campus, but there's a lot more outside. The workplace is one place, society is another place. A lot of problems waiting for us in India to get solved where institutions can help out. And last but not the least is flexible education. What I mean here is that when you want to personalize learning, you can't have straight-jacketed methods. You must be willing as an institution to be flexible so that you are in a position to reward those who are taking the path. All students are not the same. What suits one does not suit another. So if we feel that only those who come out of these institutions are good, they are further away from the truth. Every student is a gem. It is the job of the institution to light the fire in that gem. And that can happen only when we are flexible. They may enroll for one program. You must be flexible to shift them to another program. They may like a course. It may not be offered. You must have the ways by which they can approach that course. All this contributes to flexibility. These are some of the things that India needs to look at. It's not easy. Some of our private universities have started doing work here. The path here is very long. And institutions need to be extremely open-minded about what they say. As Jiddu Krishnamurti very famously said, if we think we know, we are dead. Thank you.